Happy Wednesday, folks. As opposed to the last couple days, we actually have some news to talk about, some rumors, some speculation regarding Erik Karlsson, some other things. But we'll start off with Russ's pre-show commentary.
Somebody who does live in Winnipeg, a friend of mine, John Waldman, posted this morning an article that basically, now again, this is sad that this is now coming out in article form, that next week Starbucks will start to serve pumpkin spice coffee. And I got to tell you, I wanted to read some of the comments because a lot of his friends are Canadian. He tagged me because he knew how I would feel about it. But I will tell you, there's at least 40 to 50% of those people that are like, it's 90 degrees out. Why in the world am I going to drink this stuff? And why would I ice it? I'm telling you, this is something that I don't understand with companies. It's like, you're going to get your opportunity to serve pumpkin spice, but don't do it at the height of the summer. You still got like 3-4 weeks of hot temperatures.
Well, and it's ironic that you said this. I don't know if you saw the tweet that I tweeted out this morning, because I had to stop at the supermarket on the way back from the gym, and I'm walking through the dairy section, and they had the Chobani Greek yogurt, and they had pumpkin spice Chobani yogurt. And I'm like, it's August frickin' 22nd. Just like all of a sudden they start Christmas decorations and Christmas music right after Halloween. It's August 22nd. I mean, I remember a couple years ago when I was at the rookie tournament in London, Ontario, and that was always the first weekend of September that they had pumpkin spice lattes or whatever. Yeah. It's way too early. And first of all, it sucks. It tastes terrible.
We're going to even forget about that. We're just going to go for timeliness factor. And it's like, there's a window where you literally can serve pumpkin spice from like the middle to the end of September through almost December. Like, why the hell are you starting it in August? Like, it just...
Hey, Costco had Halloween stuff in August.
Yes.
Like, it's gotten ridiculous.
First week of August at a local supermarket, they had the jack-o'-lantern shaped Reese's peanut butter cups.
We talked about that. We did, and I want to thank my team out there that certainly lets me know about these things when they pop up. The anti-pumpkin team.
I like a pumpkin spice latte as much as the next guy. I get one.
Of course you do, because you've got fancy glasses. And
these are Foster grants from Shoppers Drug Mart. They cost me $33, Russ.
I'm the one who's got fancy glasses. These are a $400 pair of Ray-Bans with. Yeah.
I break my glasses so often I don't buy them. I don't buy fancy. So I like that, and I understand the marketing of things. And pumpkin spice lattes are a bit of a cult classic. It's like a good red wine from California, you know. But the thing that really irks me is right after Halloween ends, Starbucks then sells their Christmas spice coffee.
Yes.
It's November 1st, boom, they're right in. And that goes on for 2 months. And then they have so much of it.
Yeah. Peppermint lattes.
Yeah. But just a regular bold coffee or whatever. So if you like a bold coffee, you get one of the 2 or 3, depending on the Starbucks size you go to. It's that. And it keeps going to January until they get rid of it. It gets a little goofy. And that's the problem is they're so attached to the branding and marketing of these things that they don't realize they're actually degrading the customer experience.
They are.
And that's a really important thing to know.
You know, it actually gets this right. I don't want to give them too much credit, but McDonald's always gets it right when they put out the Shamrock Shake for a short amount of time.
Yes.
Or even the McRib. I know people that are hooked on this, even though it's, disgusting, but they do it at the right times marketing wise. You're right.
And Christmas, and I actually like this. They do the eggnog shake.
Right.
So they do it seasonal, but they do it in a small enough window that it doesn't get obnoxious. I mean, the one thing I've also noticed is, because we're not the only people who are sick and tired of pumpkin spice. I call it pumpkin spice apocalypse. That they're branching out now. It's like, for example, the Greek yogurt Chobani maple flavored for the Christmas holiday season, maple flavored, apple cinnamon flavored. It's gotten to be totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just too much.
And I do want to call out Cousin Eddie because he's saying hashtag Team Pumpkin Spice. Listen, he roots for a team that he's never even seen win a championship in his lifetime. So whatever.
Oh, whoa. Watch it. He'll turn on us. Hi, Ak.
Hello.
We're live and we're talking about pumpkin spice.
Yes, because Starbucks is starting it up next week because everybody needs that when they're going to the beach.
Yeah, that's really important. I know. Yeah, I'm not talking about food at all, guys. I don't feel good.
No problem.
We're battling a bad flu this week. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the only thing that's gotten me out of bed today is this Erik Karlsson thing, essentially, which is happening. So just fun to follow. But and I did have like a quick little thing though, which is like, and I know you guys, I know Peter's a parent, but you guys are not. But still, you'll appreciate the fact that our children, well, my children at least, start school next week on Monday. And this is the most absurd thing. What was that?
Peter's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When does Kaya start school, Russ?
She doesn't. She just lays around, man.
It's the most absurd thing in the world now that they have, and we have a place near the beach, and I was talking to people down there, and like, so there's the busiest 2 weeks of the year usually for a lot of vacation type people, who were in the vacation industry. You were in the hotel industry, Russ. It's like the last 2 weeks of August are like big travel weeks.
They are.
Whereas everybody travels, and now they've taken the last week away and put the kids back in school like on that Monday of the last week of August, which like kills the economy. And also just like, it's just kind of like ridiculous to go back to school in August. In my opinion, like you should definitely return to school after Labor Day. Like that's the rule, right? That's how it's always been. Mm-hmm. It's just funny. So, and I know some people who started last week, like who started this week, who are already in
school. It depends on your state. Like you guys, like you guys for your high school, depending on your states. And this is a really interesting historical one, because if you go back to World War II, that's when summer holidays started, because we had a fairly agricultural-based economy in a lot of states and provinces in Canada. And you needed the kids to get out of school to help with the farms because so many men were away fighting in the war. Right. And a lot of that never changed. But I know some states, like school ends kind of like the last week of May, but they're back in the middle of August. And if you're in any university and you play a sport, particularly football, you've already been there for a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of other sports too.
Yeah, and being from a family that had, my dad was a teacher. The one interesting thing was that up until probably the last 15 to 20 years, teachers would get paid weekly or biweekly until the end of June. And then in the summer, they had to find themselves another job to get through from June to September, because they wouldn't put the payout for 52 weeks. They would stop it when the school year stopped and then start it when the school year started again. So like my dad did the census, and I know other teachers who did the customs at the Peace Bridge, but that's just bizarre.
Yeah,
that's a thing up here for sure, Mike. Same thing. And a lot of the teachers, particularly if you were a young teacher and that was your only option, depending on your school district and how everything's managed, they also went and taught summer school. Fill in the blanks between those 2.5 months or 2 months.
Yeah, my dad did the same thing too.
My dad was in the Air Force, and but he was
they never get a vacation.
Well, he was but he also did teach. He just because of the same kind of thing, he wasn't making that money, so he was actually a calculus teacher, and I ran the high school math program in Florence, New Jersey, for a long time, and which is where I was introduced to Drink a Toast. So that's all. The whole story comes together. That's
what gave you the stomach flus. That Take a Boost.
No, if I had some, that'd be better. It's a problem. I don't have that. I need that. I need someone to bring me some from North Jersey. I'm not really this one. I don't know why my whole thing, but I don't. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue because we do have some hockey to talk about today, so this is good. Ready to go?
Yep.
All right, let's try it. It's Thursday.
Nope, Wednesday.
Thank you. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, August 22nd, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello, and I hate pumpkin spice. Sorry.
I'm Peter Tessier in very smoky BC.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and pumpkin spice is horrible.
Oh man, I'm Eklund. And why do we even eat pumpkins? Like it's not even, it doesn't make any sense.
Pumpkin pie.
Watch HockeyBuzz.com. It's a podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings of the hockey world. And so it's interesting. Over the last 24 hours, if you were following my tweet, despite my 102 fever, you would see that yesterday I posted that things were heating up, that there was something going on in the trade world. You were starting to hear a lot of things. And then today I tried to dig deeper into it, and all I could find was that, something was going to give with Pacioretty and or Karlsson within the next 10 days. And that sort of, and my blog that I wrote today, was along the lines of, this is the time of year to dump these players if you have to. If you really have to dump them, if you're in a situation where you can't get anything but rental money for them, this is the time of year you're going to do that. It makes sense because right now, I mean, if in Hockey Buzz and even the amount of people watching this show, it's like half of the normal viewership and half of the normal readership, because this is the time of year.
It wasn't my dog.
Yeah. It's half. It's really this is the time of year where we get way less people, and because everyone's sort of not paying attention. And this, so if you're going to put out news, it's going to be not great, which the Karlsson trade and Pacioretty trade, no matter what, is not going to be great news for either Ottawa or Montreal. No one's going to love the return they get for these players. That's going to be this is the time to do it. Put it out now, and then suddenly today, Elliot Friedman puts out that he talks are heating up with Karlsson, and now suddenly Vancouver could be involved, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's the case. And I do know for a fact that other teams have gotten involved in this for sure. And, and they can do it under the radar because of the time of year when, there aren't that many people covering hockey. And, this is an easy time of year to for other teams to get in on this.
Well, and this is the thing with Vancouver. And I know because when I retweeted Elliot Friedman's tweet on this subject and offered my little commentary on it, a lot of Vancouver fans were basically going, no, they're like, this is, and those are the fans who have wanted and who continue to want them to do a rebuild. And the problem is that your ownership will never do it. They've never bought into it. They can, they puzzlingly, give the marching orders to their general manager to go out and sign guys like Antoine Roussel and Jay Beagle, and the previous year Michael Del Zotto and a few Thomas Vanek and a few other veterans. And even with the Sedins retiring, that opened up $14 million in cap space. They've got right now for next year, over $30 million in cap space. This year, they still have a little over $9 million. So adding on a Karlsson, they can do it financially. They can also do it in terms of what Ottawa is looking for. Vancouver is one of the deepest prospect-laden organizations in the NHL. And if you put together what we have heard and what you've reported, Eck, about what Ottawa was looking for, say, Dallas or from Tampa. Sergachev's name was mentioned. Heiskanen's name was mentioned with Dallas. A defensive prospect like Olli Juolevi, who was taken 5th overall in 2016, makes a lot of sense, especially after Vancouver drafted Quinn Hughes in this draft. They've got young defensemen in the pipeline. They could trade a Juolevi along with something else, and that might be a better package for Ottawa than anything that they've been offered in the last couple months.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think Juolevi would be a big part of that package. I think a one, and I still think you would have to throw in another player or prospect or pick or something, and that's fine. I think it makes sense. I think if I'm Ottawa, I'm not going to be able to do much better than that because Juolevi is a potential first or second pair in D-man for the next 10 years when he makes it. So, I mean.
And it's a reset on their age gap, too.
Yeah, it's a reset on the age gap, too. Right. That's a big deal.
How good their defense would be if they added. I mean, because they have this great young defense there that's coming up. I mean, they have some really good young players.
Well, you'd have Karlsson, Edler, Tanev, Edgar Branson, Del Zotto, Troy Stetcher, Hutton. I mean, they'd be deep enough at the NHL level. But Peter, I mean, again, this is.
Sorry, Mike. Remember, at the end of the year, if Michigan's out of it, you could bring Quinn Hughes in the fold too.
Right, but I mean, the only thing that this makes sense from a Vancouver perspective here is, and like I said to you guys before the show, Vancouver and Jim Benning would now then have the opportunity to work on Karlsson for the next 6 months, and it's not exactly a tough thing to sway somebody to want to play in British Columbia.
No.
You know, it's a beautiful place. You know, if they're intent on putting some money into the franchise and continuing to, you know, they have the young guys like Horvat and Besser and Virtanen. If they can keep most of those guys without and not trade them in a deal for Karlsson, it might be an opportunity where, you know, he's got a chance to play with some of his countrymen. I'm sure the Sedins will probably work on him to try to help him make a decision. I mean, Peter, to me, it adds up as a really good possibility.
I mean, everything adds up particularly because of the direction that ownership wants to go. They want their belief, and Francesco Aquilini has said this since the day they really got control. They ousted Dave Nonis and got Mike Gillis in, that their expectation is they will be competing for the playoffs, which means competing for a Stanley Cup every year. That's the ownership's expectation. And this makes a lot of sense because it falls into that logic, that wheelhouse of logic that comes from ownership. What I think is super interesting about this is never underestimate Vancouver to do things that foils its fan base in funny ways. Yes. And I put out a tweet saying, well, you know, maybe Ottawa has to give up the 2019 first-round draft pick, and Vancouver's hosting the draft. So I wouldn't even rule out Vancouver trading its first-round pick this year, despite them hosting the draft, simply because that's what they would do to that's the level ownership is at, to fulfill what they believe is the right way to run a franchise. And, you know, maybe, you know, who knows, given what they have in assets and where they are this season, but they could acquire another first-round pick at the trade deadline anyways. But if it means getting Erik Karlsson and getting him at the contract value you believe, I don't think they need 9 months to work on Erik Karlsson. They need to know from Erik Karlsson, are you willing to sign here? What's it going to take? And they can get this done fairly quick, just like Poyle got done with Kyle Turris, right? You can get this done to make it work. They need to know that, and then they'll know if it's worth the risk. And frankly, Karlsson will be 28 when his deal starts next time. As long as, you know, again, we've talked about this before with Karlsson, is his injury something that's going to affect him long-term? Because he had a bit of an off year when it came to skating and what made him so special. Russ, I know you disagree on this. I think it's worth, like, if I'm Vancouver, and I've accepted the fact that they're never going to rebuild. So if you're going to go all in, this is the kind of guy you go all in on. That's the logic, right? Yeah. Is it the right thing for them? I don't know, but that's how they behave. And you can only really operate with how they behave. And that's what we see. And I think, I mean, hey, for the dog days of August, bring it on. We love this stuff.
Yeah, you know, the odd thing about this is yesterday I saw an ad that was on Twitter for Erik Karlsson and an energy drink, and it said, "Can you recover like Erik Karlsson?" And now he might get traded, so he might need that drink to recover.
Like that ad was huge yesterday on Twitter and stuff like that, and really it was a funny ad, and it was, I thought it was. Did you hear me? Hello.
No, we lost you for a second. Go,
I thought that ad was well done. I thought they did a good job with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm gonna sit back and say, you know, like, it's funny. My views on the Canucks have changed drastically. I know Peter stays with the Canucks, and you live and die with the Canucks because you grew up with the Canucks. Last year, I used to not be a Benning guy at all. Like, I thought he was doing a terrible job because the trade deadlines were just horrible. Like, he really just handled the trade deadline terribly. I thought his communication was always bad. I knew there was this disconnect between the ownership and him. But then, like, over the last couple of years, Russ has slowly convinced me that the Vancouver Canucks have a pretty darn good prospect pool coming. Like, that they have been doing a good job at drafting. When you look at what they've got, and a lot of them are Swedish, on top of it all.
I think the thing is, I think Jim Benning is sort of as a general manager is a split personality. If you're talking about Jim Benning, the drafter, Russ is definitely right. I mean, Besser is a great prospect. and he played very well last year and was second in the Calder Trophy voting. Pettersson really impressed both of us at the World Junior, and I think he's going to be a really good NHL player. Thatcher Demko is a top flight goaltending prospect. They have other prospects as well. We mentioned Ulevi. The problem is some of the trades he's made, and mostly the free agent signings, and that maybe you can assuage his guilt for those based on the marching orders he gets from the Aquilinis. If the Aquilinis are telling him go out and spend the money and sign veterans, then he really can't be blamed for it. But spending $3 million a year on Antoine Roussel, spending $3 million a year on Jay Beagle, signing some of the Sam Gagner and Michael Del Zotto, these are not smart moves. I mean, I don't get them.
They're not. What else were they going to do? This is my thinking on it. Okay, so
what are they going to do? They're going to finish. They're going to finish at the bottom of the league and get a lynch.
You know me. I mean, I love a team.
Yes, I know.
All right, so I mean, if they're not going to tank, and they're still going to, I mean, they're getting prospects. I mean, better seriously, you talk about. I mean, Pettersson is he was the 5th overall pick, I guess, in his draft year.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a Calder candidate this year.
Serious player. Demko's a serious player. Ulevi's a serious player. I've heard good things about even guys like Gaudette, and other guys they have coming, right? So who's I think a older college player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adam Gaudette.
Yeah.
But these guys are they're. I mean, so yeah, you could tank and maybe get somebody who's slightly better than them, or get lucky and get the top overall pick. Or you could put it together a team you could ice a team that's going to compete like you should, which is the way that sports work. So I've come around on this team. I mean, I still don't think they're good at the trade deadline. I still think that's their issue, because there's a counterintuitiveness to what they're doing. They are trying to compete, but at the trade deadline, they don't make moves. I mean, they obviously don't like to trade draft picks, right? So this is what it comes down to.
Well, and
they do good things with their draft picks, even if they're not in the top 5 or 10 draft picks. They still do. But that was like a 5th round draft pick, I think.
And their choices of who to keep and re-sign. I mean, I wish I had $1 for every Vancouver Canuck fan who was pissed off last year when they re-signed Eric Branson.
Yeah,
that I don't get either, because I like Branson. I mean, I don't have a problem with Branson.
Well, neither do I, but the analytics crowd think he's the devil incarnate.
When are you ever going to get I'm sorry, I'm sick, so I'm on pain medication. I can get really ornery today. But when are you ever going to get a player like Eric Branson? I mean, when the hell does analytics matter with a player like Eric Branson? He's a hard hitter. He's a tough defensive guy. I don't know. I mean,
it matters if you think he's something he's not. That's when it matters. And analytics are one tool in the toolbox to help you understand, well, I want good Branson. We're going to slot him in here and do this. But if you use your analytics right, you're going to realize, wait, no, good Branson's skill set is this.
Yeah.
And if you expect that from him, you've made a mistake. And that's how analytics can help you. But
right. If you expect, but you should expect that. If you watch Eric Branson play, you should expect to get what you get out of him. And you're going to get a hard-hitting player who's going to compete, who's going to be in your top 6.
Top blocker.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
I mean, this thing though, I don't think they do get enough credit. I think on some of these trades, they're low-level trades until all of a sudden they get something out of it, like Sven Baertschi. I mean, you go back to when they originally got him, and he now was signed to a 3-year deal. In his last 3 years, he's had years of 28 points, 35, 29 points, 15, 18, and 14 goals. Like, this is a guy they got for a 2nd-round pick. That's a brilliant trade.
Where their fans have a problem is Eric Branson at $4 million for another 3 years.
Sure.
Well, I'm just saying. I like Branson. I think I would take Branson on the Maple Leafs any day, because they need that big, stay-at-home, tough defenseman. But I'm just telling you that a lot of the fan base in Vancouver don't like him, don't like the type of game he plays, and the same, and to a lesser extent, Peter, you can confirm this with Chris Tanev, because Chris Tanev gets hurt all the time.
Yeah. Right, and
126 hits and 81 blocks.
Right. I mean, the mistake they made. Okay, let's look at like Louis Eriksson. That's a huge mistake. Okay, they made that mistake. Yeah. There's no questions asked about that. They made their mistakes. Every team has a couple of them on their team that they make, and they brought him in because you just come off of a pretty good Stanley Cup run and everything like that with Boston, if I remember right. Like, he wasn't too far away from having his good years. And I could be misremembering things. Like I said, I'm on
No.
I'm on a day call. But he was flying pretty high there, and he was gonna get that money from somebody. They got it from Vancouver, which was an odd choice at the time. But they brought him in to play with the Sedins, who they were giving a last chance to try to win something with. Basically, they felt like they owed it to the Sedins to give him a serious winger. That's how I remember it, and that's what they did. Right, so they went in there and they gave him a serious winger. And Deegan's like, go ahead, Peter.
No, I agree. They did. And that's when I think they did that the year they mysteriously kind of made the playoffs without really thinking they would. They got beat by Calgary, and all of a sudden, hey, wait a second, maybe we're really not that far off. Louis Eriksson's been a serviceable guy. And they went down that road. It was a bad deal. It wasn't the right thing to do. It's a mistake. Eriksson currently has 4 more years at $6 million.
Yeah.
And I would suspect that he will be a buyout candidate after not this season, but next season, after 2019-20, because I would expect with the lockout that we all expect to happen, we're going to have that moment of grace where you can buy out players that it won't count against your limited buyouts for regular season. Everyone, just like last time, will get that opportunity to do a few buyouts to wipe the slate clean.
I'm not so sure they're going to have a compliance buyout this time, because remember on the last CBA they were implementing the cap and they were clearing out some of those cap recapture ones. Here, I don't think the cap is going anywhere, so I don't think there's going to be a get out of jail free card on Brandon Sutter or whoever.
I think there's going to be. I think we may, and I know someone put out a big article about what the issues are.
Katie Strang.
Yeah, Katie Strang. I just doesn't write for us, so I don't need to say her name. But I have tons of respect for her.
Great.
I don't think we can accurately predict all the issues right now, because as you get into negotiations, you have your 5 things you want, but you have 15 other things that you'll bring into the fold as the things you have to concede change. And that's what happens. So, this is how the NHL works. I mean, like it or not, Gary Bettman, this will be, if the lockout happens and, who's betting against it, this will be his 4th, 94, 2005, 2013. This will be his 4th.
Yeah.
He's a pro at being patient.
Right.
He has dismantled the Players Association management and leadership twice. Right.
Yeah.
And he's good, and he's a tactician with this. And you bring in these other things. Well, you know what, guys, that's really cool. But we want to have our teams, they have some money and they want to be able to get rid of some of your contracts. So you know what? Maybe that becomes the end for a Louis Eriksson. But betting against that possibility happening, I think, is really silly, because owners always want ways to get out of their mistakes.
They do, but remember, Donald Fehr wasn't there the whole time, right?
Right.
Since he's been there, he's won quite a bit of things for the players and the PA. I mean, actually, the smartest thing the players ever did was bringing in Donald Fehr when they made that big pitch to him, because he's paid them off in spades. So I don't think Bettman will be able to get away with as much as he did in some of those others. And could there be a compliance buyout? Sure, there could be, but I still think there's a couple of hills on here. I know we all think, well, there can't be anything that they could possibly lock out on, but there is.
Yeah, length of contract is definitely going to be one.
This isn't going to be. I mean, I think that you might miss a month or something.
But heck, we don't even talk about the fact that they can walk away from this CBA. There is that clause. I mean, that is possible that it happens.
But if they walk away, remember, I think it's next summer. I think it's the player, or next summer I think it's the owners, and the following summer I think it's the players. I think that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if they agree to walk away,
this is too depressing.
No, but if they agree to walk away, there is a year in between then and when they can walk away. So it could be a negotiation sort of on the fly and not at the 11th hour. But the thing is that I'm sure they'll wait until the last moment just to get as much leverage as possible. Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, they don't know. They both sides have learned that they don't lose by missing some time in the season, which is unfortunate. That's just the way it goes. But I think that. I hate that. I hate lockout-proof contracts. That's another conversation for another day. But getting back to Vancouver for a second, so I went through their 50 contracts, and there's an astonishing thing that you find out about the Vancouver Canucks right away. And I don't know if any other team has this many, and maybe they do, but I don't think so. I mean, I've never done this before, so this is really off the top of my head. I did it really quickly. I want you guys to guess how many first or second round draft picks are in their 50 contracts. So out of the 50 contracts,
for both.
Yeah, out of the 50 contracts, how many of those players were drafted in the first or second round? Not by them necessarily, but just in the first.
Ooh, I'm gonna say, like, you want a total number or a percentage?
Yeah, total number. So, like,
12.
Oh, I'm gonna say higher than that. Way higher.
Well, because second round could be
it's over 25.
I'll say 16.
All right, 28.
Wow.
20. So you're at 28 players. So it's over half of your 50 contracts were drafted in the first, second round. That's just an enormously high number. Like that.
Really, when you think about that, though, there was a couple of years ago when the Rangers were collecting first rounders from other teams.
Well, I don't know what it means. What it means is this. What it means is they are a team that sees they're playing the long game and they're looking at potential and they're looking. Because what I've been taught, and I don't know prospects like you guys do, but one thing that always stuck in my head that a scout told me years ago is that if a player dominates at the junior level, they'll eventually dominate in the NHL. That's the theory, right? And it might take them a long time, but eventually, once they get to the age where they're playing with people, that are younger than them, I think that and they said this about, I remember it was Jeff Carter I was talking about, who really dominate, and they said, well, if you dominate at the junior level, eventually. You think so the first and second rounders are those who dominate at the junior level, and you expect them eventually. It might take some time. So what the Canucks are doing is they're amassing. They obviously love the draft. They feel highly. But there are some teams that actually go the opposite way. That they want to get the fourth or fifth rounders.
This is all because of Benning, though. Like this is all Benning's doing, and it's really not hurting them at all. And that's what I always try and point out to people.
Yeah,
it's go ahead.
Interesting thought about the draft and stuff, and it was, again, bring up another name, but doesn't write for us, but we all know who he is. Tyler Dellow made a really interesting point about 5 years ago, and he said one of the interesting things he's found is that some of the best third and fourth line guys are first and second not high draft picks, but first round draft picks who never lived up to their potential for what they're supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah. You're trying to build a balanced roster and you find the right guys and you realize where they fit. A process like Vancouver, having all these first and second round picks where they're NHL caliber, maybe they're not living up to the top end, your top six, but man, we know the value of having a solid bottom six now is immeasurable in the league.
Yeah.
I just did the Rangers, and they're at 18, which is still really high.
Okay, that's still high, yeah.
28, I was like, my God.
28 is kind of crazy. And the difference is the Vancouver Canucks, the weird thing about it is, okay, they have, in their first two lines now, according to, according to a roster resource. I don't know if these are top lines, but their first two lines are all that. Like Eriksson's a second, Horvat's a first, Besser's a first, Barchi's a first, Pettersson's a first, Granlund's a second. Okay, so that's all those players, right? And then you get down to Sam Gagner, who's a first. Brandon Sutter's a first. But then what's interesting is you get into even some of their really obscure players on their minor league teams. That are under contract with them. They're part of this contract. Are in there. It's really they have a lot of first rounders playing for them in the AHL.
Yeah, but I mean, I can remember, it been not so long ago when they were struggling. The Leafs had an absolute ton of first-round picks because they were the receptacle for failed first-round picks and second chances. Right. And that's the thing. It's it's great to have guys who are first-round picks. That's what you're aiming for. Are first-round picks who can play. Right. And there are some first-round picks on the Canucks and on other teams that have not reached their potential, and maybe they can be effective third or fourth liners. But what this team needs is first round picks who can actually play up to their potential. And I think guys like, Besser showed it last year. I think
Pedersen will do it this year too.
I think Pedersen will do it. I think Hughes will do it. I mean, so that record with Benning is improved, but just because they have a lot of guys who are first round picks is not a pathway to success.
Right. No, I don't think it's a success. I just think it's the kind of it's what they look at in terms of how they they obviously value where a guy was drafted. That it matters to them. Yeah, it means something to them. Because some teams will say, there are certain teams that are almost opposite of that. Like they if a player has been like bounced around and suddenly he comes in, like you said, he's a fit. Oh, they're looking at him. Should we pick him up? What round was he drafted? He was drafted in the first round. Wow, he's been an underachiever. That's pretty crazy. Or see like what round he's drafted in the fifth round. Wow, that's pretty. He's doing pretty well considering.
Well, can we flip it to the other side of the equation if there is a deal here? Because I mean, honestly, and we've talked about Ottawa ad nauseum in terms of, the 3 unrestricted free agents, but there's talk about, Craig Anderson still wanting out. And if there is an impetus here to get Karlsson, a Karlsson deal done before they get to training camp, to me, I mean, I think it's just reflected. I mean, we talked about it yesterday, the comments of Johnny Oduya and maybe, the fact that he was, he's on the way out the door, is a factor, but the fact that he basically said that the organization didn't know how to react to certain situations, didn't have the established what was the term, Russ, that they were not steeped in tradition,
right?
And that they when everything went badly, there was no mechanism to manage the situation. It was just a clown car, a show of crap, and that's, I think, still what's going on.
So, well, speaking of clown car, breaking news from the Senators. Ian Mendes just reporting that Senators announced assistant GM Randy Lee has resigned.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Like, what is going on?
Well, without going into detail, it's tied to what happened at the draft combine in May. There was, I believe the charges are still pending. I think he pled not guilty, but I believe they did an internal investigation. And after that, he was forced to leave the organization. And the thing is, I saw somebody make the comment, it's like, it's very late in the game, late August going into September, a couple weeks before training camp. He was not just the assistant GM of the Senators. He was the general manager of the Belleville Senators. He was, he's the leader of their AHL team. So now, on top of all the other stuff that Pierre Dorion has to handle, now he has to handle Belleville as well.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Lee. He was a pretty highly regarded guy for quite a long time. He has been.
No question.
Yeah, but I mean, and
I don't know what happened, and I don't even want to get into it. But I just.
Yeah, I don't want to go into it either. But
it is. It's a big story for sure.
But just in terms of the optics of what's going on in Ottawa, besides the Hoffman-Karlsson thing, which, thankfully has become, it's sort of faded into the woodwork right now. I don't know whether we're ever going to hear anything more about the situation with Hoffman's fiance and Karlsson's wife. But just on the ice, just the focus on the ice, you've got their number one goaltender who apparently wants out. You've got their top scorer who wants out. You've got a two-time Norris Trophy winner who basically will not re-sign there. You've traded one of your best scorers. You're trying to dump one of your highest-paid players by attaching him to Erik Karlsson. What isn't a joke about this franchise?
No, it's unfortunate that it's in a pile-on phase right now, right? Because they have had, they've had so many things happen to them, and it's like, and you do have to feel for the fans of the, I'm not feeling for the owners here, but I'm just saying, the owner has his own issues and all that stuff. But there's not much that's going right there. Anderson, we wonder almost, could he be included in a deal with Karlsson? I don't
think he's going to be. I think at this point, I don't think Anderson has to go at this moment.
No.
No, he doesn't have to go at all. And I think they're going to be very hesitant to trade him because he's going to be one of the only things that keeps them from getting that first pick overall problem that they have. Because Anderson,
I think he's a deadline. I think he's got 1 year left in his contract after this year. I think he's a deadline deal for somebody who needs a goaltender. So if Jake Allen fails in St. Louis or something like that, and they need a goalie, then he might be the guy that is the most readily available for a trade.
So it's interesting. I guess Scout, and just one more thing on Vancouver, a Scout who I really trust, who I know covers the Western Conference in depth, who's watching the show right now, said to me, sent me this little text saying it's an interesting comment. He said it is true about that, but he said there is something that you need to notice about the players that what you're ready to talk about is the players that Vancouver signed in the offseason, being that they picked up Anton Roussel, Jay Beagle, and Tim Schaller. And what do the three of those have in common?
Well, they're all character guys. They're all like
beyond that, but in the context of what we were saying, none of them were drafted.
Right.
Talking about three undrafted players, Roussel, Beagle, and Schaller, right? So it's pretty crazy.
Well, the other news that we were going to probably lead off the show first with, but then this report about Karlsson broke, was the injury to Sean Couturier. And since the show started, we had a little bit of clarification from Bill Meltzer and Dave Isaac. Dave Isaac was reporting he's going to be out 4 weeks, which would put him in the middle of training camp or in the middle of the preseason. Then the concern here is that I believe this is the same knee that he hurt.
No, they're saying it's not a re-injury, but but he is going to have to wear like that derotation brace while he plays, or some sort of brace. And so the worry here is something that we've seen for I don't know, last 3-4 years with the Flyers. Somebody gets hurt early, they play through it, and their numbers drop pretty drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Couturier could be the next guy in that list, and we saw it happen with Simmons. We saw it happen with Giroux more than once, and now Couturier. I mean, yes, it's good news that he'll be in training camp, although he'll be wearing the yellow jersey. There's no contact and all of that, so he'll play the season, but he's now diminished from what you saw last year. There's no way around it.
Yeah, there's no there. I mean, and it's not if it's this. What's interesting is it doesn't have to be that a re-injury to have been affected by the injury from before. Like that. Right. When you're rehabilitating a knee or whatever, you're when your knee is hurt, and you play on it like you did play on it quite a bit too with it hurt. All that makes you put stress on different parts of your body and different things happen. So it could all be connected, and it is all connected. I mean, it's one body, one organ. Yeah. It's no question that it plays into it, and it makes it harder for him now. He's a tough character, so the thing about him, that we do know is that, he is.
But here's the thing:
how much is it going to
affect? Never the fastest guy, and now you kind of wonder: is he losing a little bit of the speed? If he is, then all of a sudden you're slowing down that top line a little bit.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, but like you say,
not possibly. Like there's a
isn't his thing to start with. So that I think that Couturier's strength is the fact that he is as smart as he is, right? Like it's all about intelligence for him, and that he can put himself in a position where he doesn't have to be the fastest guy, and he's
except in a top line in the NHL now, you do have to be at least quick.
Yeah, you have to have quickness, and you have to.
The worry is if he's going to lose some of that quickness, what will that do to the top line?
No, it's legitimate. I mean, it's legitimate. I have to see it. It's kind of thing that with that particular, with certain players, you kind of bet on them not having an effect until you'd see it having an effect, because he's the kind of who works so hard and just basically will play through pain and just has no. Yeah. Now, if it has effect, it has effect. But there are some players like that who get hurt a lot that you worry about more than I worry about.
Well, until we heard the extent and the range of how long they expect him to be out, Russ and I were discussing what the Flyers would do if Couturier. And the thing is, you have to consider the possibility here that he's tweaked this injury, that it could have long-term ramifications, and possibility of him having to have surgery or sit out for a while, or all those factors are in. And if you look at the Flyers, what are the options if Couturier is out for a prolonged period? Do they move Giroux back to the middle, Do they keep keep a young kid like Morgan Frost, who was their second first-round pick from 2017, early in the season, and let's see if he can play in the NHL as a 19-year-old. I mean, there are not a lot of. I mean, I think those are good options, but it forces them to do something they probably don't want to do.
Yeah,
it could. I mean, I think you're going to have to look at again in camp and see how Couturier looks, although you're not really going to know until the early part of preseason because, he's not going to have any contact. And, the thing about hockey is when the guys wear the no contact jersey, they're not practicing at the same pace and speed, everything else they need to do when they're in a game. And this is, to me, this is a worry. Like, this is a red flag in the sense that this could affect their top line. If it does affect the top line, then, I don't know, maybe someone like Frost does get a longer look because maybe they're going to have his speed in there.
Yeah, I mean they can't really promote Scott Lawton or Jordan Wheel up to a second line because I don't think they're capable of handling that kind of responsibility. I think eventually Frost is going to be that number 2 center, at the NHL level who can score 60, 65 points because he's a very good playmaker and has got really great speed, but he's 19. I mean, the expectation is he's going to play for the Sioux this year, probably play for Team Canada, the World Junior, and to put him into a situation if Couturier can't play, that might be unfair to him. So, that's why I lean towards them moving Giroux to the middle because he's played there before, and if it's say a month or 6 weeks, I think he can handle it.
Here's the funny thing, though, and this is what I got a kick out of, and it might just be headline writing, but they said, the headline is like even on NHL.com that he'll be out approximately 4 weeks. Well, I mean, so will the NHL.
Yeah.
There's no reason to panic here. There's a lot of different things going on. And so he has a slower training camp. He doesn't play much in the preseason. That's going to have a few timing things. But if he comes back mid-October to be safe, there's nothing here for Philly to worry about.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario, Peter. I can't go along with that, though. I've seen too many things with these Flyers teams with guys with, slight injuries that they just keep playing through all season that eventually their production goes down.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does. I mean,
Murray had the best year of his career last year. Are we really expecting him now to have that same year? I think that's a lofty goal at this point.
Yeah, true. I mean, obviously, it's all speculation. It's hard to say. And Couturier's what we have here is Couturier's extreme importance to the Flyers, which is obvious, right? And we saw that last year when he was missing in the playoffs. That he is, and it's interesting. We still have to go back to remember they got Couturier and Voracek for Jeff Carter. So we'll throw that out there still. That's it's so funny when you look back on the trade still to this day. It's amazing. I mean, it really is. They got 2 top fine players,
But heck, he went from 34 points to 76 points. I'm willing to make you a bet right now, and I don't even think you would take it that he's not getting 76 points this year.
Well, I think just because of that. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I would take the bet.
I'll take that bet. I'll take it. I will take that bet because Peter Couturier, and I think that if anything,
I'm going to ask Drew in the chat room to jot it down so we have some
take care of it. But here's the thing. I mean, if anything, Couturier last year, the way this guy learns, at the rate at which his IQ in hockey is, I mean, I think that last year he learned how to play center on the top line. I mean, literally, he went from not having that role at all to having that role completely. And who's to say that he's not going to just get better at it? I mean, he's going to in another year playing that role with Giroux and with also probably Konechny or whoever on the side. Improving as well. Who's to say his points aren't going to go up? I'm going over. I'm going to go on the over there.
I'm going to go 55, 60 points. That's it.
Peter,
right.
TSN was reporting that they interviewed Josh Morrissey, and he's indicating that he believes that he'll be signing a new deal with the Jets soon. I still struggle to decide whether it's going to be a bridge or it's going to be a long-term deal, because I think that what it is going to sort of affect what they do with Trouba and have a sort of a domino effect.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think everyone in Winnipeg is sitting around going, what's taking so long? I saw he also spoke to some of the Winnipeg Free Press as well, and I saw the article on that. And it was a lot of typical, generally positive cliche answers. And I expect we'll hear more of that if he's not signed by training camp, we'll hear a little bit more. But I don't understand why it wouldn't be. But, that's 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
I have sat on the fence about what the Jets want to do with Morrissey in terms of, do they want to give him a chance to see if he's really has the offensive talent he had in junior at the NHL level, or do they think, no, this is what he is, we need to pay him for this now and lock him up? And I'm still of the belief, I think they want to go bridge, because I think it buys them a little bit of time. They're willing, if they do, their logic is this: they're willing to bet that he doesn't have much more offensive power that's going to drive up his value. Right. And he can
They're going to lose that bet, Peter. I can tell you right now.
Well, Russ, I'm not saying it's a bet I would make.
Yeah. If that's the case,
I think that could be some of the logic. And if it doesn't materialize, then they bought themselves 2 years a little cheaper while they deal with some other problems. And that's it. And
right.
They're going to be in the same situation next year with Kyle Connor. And then in the same situation here, same situation with Jack Roslovich too. So what they do with Morrissey is kind of going to maybe give some insight into what they do with the other players. But then again, Ehlers came out of his deal, they locked him up for 7 years. Scheifele came out, they locked him up for 8. So
they're going to lock up Connor first, I think.
My preference is they lock Morrissey up for 8 and get it done. But I think they go bridge.
The thing is, Peter, and that might be, an indicator toward that is, if they bridge Morrissey for 2 years, there's only 1 year left on Byfuglien's deal at the end of that, and then they have $7.6 million opened up. So they may pay a little more if Russ is right, and they're thinking he's a 35 to 40 point defenseman. Then they're going to have to pay him, but they'll probably be without Trouba at that point, and they will be 1 year away from being without Byfuglien. So they'll probably have the room.
Just think about this. I mean, his 7 goals were all even strength. Like, this guy has a great shot. The year before, his 6 goals, 5 of them were even strength. So how much power play time is he even getting?
Not much.
Right.
And that's the thing. And Russ, this is the other thing too.
Some power play time, he'll be that 40-point guy.
And you remember him from junior.
Yeah.
He was known for his offensive prowess.
Yeah.
And he's just so here's the thing. What if he had Kurt Oberhart for an agent? You'd have the exact same argument that Trouba has. My client's not getting the time to present himself on the top level power. Well, how do you get him in? And all defensemen need to think about this, when so much of the NHL power play is running 4 forwards and 1 defense.
Well, that's why I think when you look at these 13 even strength goals, you say, okay, that's where you've got some extra value here, because he's not getting on the power play, and those goals mean something to the team. And so that's where he's going to make a little more than what his numbers say because of that. Because he could score 10 goals in a season, whether he gets on the power play or not.
Yeah. So what do you think his value is? What do you think if he's a bridge, what do you think the AAV is? And if he's long-term, what do you think it is? I'm just curious what you guys think. Like, where do you think he goes?
If he's a bridge, I think it'll be in the 3-5 range.
Russ?
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer to like 4, because I'm also looking at 168 blocks. Like, I don't remember in juniors him being put in the position of making that many blocks. So I have a feeling, based on the role that they're giving him, they are going to have to boost him a bit like same way I've talked about, like when the Rangers moved Brendan Dubinsky from center to left wing, they had to pay him to do that. I think they're going to have to pay Morrissey to not be as offensive.
And
so
if
$4 million a year for the bridge deal, if it's a 7-year deal, let's say they sign him to a 7-year deal, then I think you might be able to get him at like 3.75, something like that for the 7 years.
Oh, no, that's the thing. I think if they're buying 3 years of unrestricted free agency, I think he's over 5.
No, he won't get over 5.
I think it's 5.
If they had him locked up long term for under 5, they should give the keys of the city to Chevy. Because
no, I think you do it under 5. I do.
And I don't know. Yeah, but how do you pay him that level and then give Trouba potentially 6 or 6.5?
Well, that's the whole thing. That's why I'm only giving him between 3.75 and let's say 4.5.
But I'm assuming that Trouba is gone because
you can't assume that yet, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume that yet, but I think you think so. I mean, it would make sense, but at the same time, I mean, this team could have another great run, and win.
Here's the thing: I think at some point they may come to the realization that they need to move Byfuglien and keep the other guys because the intangibles that Byfuglien gives you is not enough.
Yeah, but good luck, and that's the thing.
Teams would take Dustin Byfuglien.
Sort of tied along this whole line is It's a Tobias Enstrom rumor I was hearing today. Now
is this coming from his mother? Because otherwise we don't hear anything about it.
I know you don't hear much about Tobias Enstrom. He is practicing with Moto over in Switzerland.
Right, we do know that. Yeah,
and once they want to give him they want a decision shortly as whether he's going to play there or not. He's been talking to the Oilers, but the Oilers I don't know if you saw that they tried to offer.
Brandon Davidson.
Yeah, right. Brandon Davidson contract. You saw that, right? He said
no. But they signed Jura back, and that's and
that's not the answer for Sekera.
I know, but Ak, I think what the answer for Sekera is that they're gonna, they're probably gonna play other defensemen like Larson or Clefbaum in more of an offensive role, or ask them to be more offensive, and maybe a guy like Matthew Benning to step up. There's not a lot of answers out there in free agency.
Enstrom, or Emelin are both good solutions for them. I mean, they are really, in my opinion, there are a lot of answers.
Emelin's a bottom pairing guy at best.
Yeah, but you what Edmonton desperately needs, and what they get out of Sekera is the fact that he's got experience. That's what they desperately need back there on the defensive end, and that's why Enstrom. I would not be shocked at all if Enstrom is somehow slightly tied to Karlsson in terms of the fact that that there might be a couple teams out there looking at Karlsson. And Enstrom's because Enstrom waiting out is not because there's no team that will give him a contract. I think because there's a couple teams that he really wants to play for that might be also in on the Eriksson thing. That's the impression I'm getting from talking.
Possibly, but I also think he could wait a month into the season and then all of a sudden something shakes loose because of injury. I think that's more likely.
Yeah. Maybe. But he also he doesn't mind. He wouldn't mind playing in Moto. So the idea is
And that's what I mean, because who's rushing out to get Enstrom at this point? Clearly nobody.
Right, but Moto.
It's a little fascinating to me, like that he is still out there.
Sorry.
Yeah. Why isn't Edmonton taking a 1-year deal with Enstrom at like 3.5?
Yeah, and I think that has been discussed, and I think that, and I also think that Edmonton is in on Eriksson. Karlsson. I really do. I've been told so many times now that that's the case. That
I don't see how that deal gets done. I don't know
but I really don't know how the Vancouver deal gets done either. So I mean, really, when you look at it,
I think we laid it out pretty successfully, because I think Vancouver's got a lot more pieces to play in terms of a deal for Karlsson than I think Edmonton does. I don't think Edmonton wants to give up the players that Ottawa would be looking, unless they're interested in giving up Evan Bouchard after taking him in the draft, and I don't think they're gonna do that. But
I want to get back to Byfuglien for 1 second, because if you look at his year, he had 45 points. Total drop-off in goals, 8 goals. He had 147 hits, which was down. He played less games. He had like 2.2 the amount of giveaways to takeaways. Like, It's a down year. That was a down year for him.
And he's 33 years old.
Yeah.
And I think he's slowing down. And that's why I'm saying good.
We still take him, but I'm saying with all the plethora of guys that they had there, I would be more worried about moving him out and keeping a guy like Trouba, and then putting guys like Trouba and Morrissey more on the offensive part of the power play than worrying about Byfuglien and this great shot, because at the end of the day, this great shot's not producing much anymore.
Peter, do you think that they're more likely to go in that direction of looking to exploring moving Byfuglien than re-signing Trouba? And yeah, the factor here is Trouba. I mean, after we thought that there was a chance he was going to sign an extension, we get the impression now that they're on the outs again because he's 1 year closer to UFA.
I think moving Dustin Byfuglien from this franchise would mean a whole bunch of other things have gone wrong.
Yeah.
That is the level of that is how integral Byfuglien is to that room, the identity of the team, to the fans, and to the other players. He is the piece in that room. He is, I know people hate the term, but he is that glue guy. Yeah. No one has anything bad to say about Buff. And the interesting thing is I'm
not saying anything bad about him either. I'm just,
but I mean, no, like you know what I mean? Like, the interesting thing is there's a belief that Andrew Ladd is one of the few guys who could talk to Buff and get through to him about, you got to bring your A game. You got to, but you know what? You don't need that anymore. Buff's bringing it. And
he's self-motivating.
Self-motivating. He's in the best shape of his career, and he sees something, and he's, maybe he evolved a little bit.
7.6 is a lot of money, man.
It is.
Right, and that's why, Russ, I don't know if there's a team out there that's going to take him at full value, take him as a declining player at 33 years. I don't think Winnipeg is going to trade him, but I mean, if they of your mindset, I don't think that there's anybody taking him at 7.6 for
next year. You have to take back a salary in the deal, but I think, because I don't think it's about losing his salary as much as it is getting rid of the logjam at that position and putting other guys in a better place. I get what Peter's saying, because I think Winnipeg fans would be afraid because they just had this great season. But you know what? At some point, if they don't win the cup again this year, you've got Byfuglien another year older with $15 million roughly that you're going to have to pay him over the next 2 years after that. Things could start to look bad, because if you lose Trouba and you only bridge Morrissey, there could be a problem there.
You could have a problem. I think you could probably move Byfuglien. You're going to retain salary, and you're probably going to do it the way the Blues retain some of Stasny's salary. That's how you move them. Right. Basically the same thing, right? 7 million, 7.6. You eat half of it, and you get something back for him. Because just remember, you take a Dustin Byfuglien and you put him in a team where he doesn't have to be the show, and you're going for a Stanley Cup. He's a change maker.
Oh yeah, if he's a rover, forget it.
Yeah.
But I agree that he's so vital to that team. He's not going.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like, he plays a massive role in that. I got to run really quick. We'll chat soon.
Okay. Just to finish up quickly here, because we're up against it time-wise. PTO for Emerson Edom with the LA Kings. Russ, I mean, a few years
was skate. And so, like, this is the one thing about being a fast player in this era is if you have speed, you will always get a chance. And Edom is a California kid, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
no, yeah, he played. He was a big player for what? Was it the Ducks or the Kings? I think
it was drafted by the Ducks. He was drafted by the Ducks.
He was really good at times for the Ducks. I mean,
he had moments. I mean, he was a Ranger for a short time, right? I mean, he didn't do much there.
I think it's a great PTO for them.
But it's a good PTO, because if he has figured it out with his speed, then yes, Emerson Edom could be a great guy to have in there.
Huge. I mean, I think that I like a lot of his game. He definitely brings a lot of energy, and what LA needs is speed. This is where
they do need speed. I mean, and I think they have picked it up. I think overall, I think they are faster than they were.
Yeah, they will be. You'll see that. I mean, it'll be an interesting team this year. There's
You
a
know,
lot.
funny, in the chat room, we didn't get a chance to go through it with Peter, but of course, Mark Peterson's asking, what are they going to do about Blake Wheeler? See, again, that's another one of those deals where at some point this team has to move on from some of these middle-aged players, because right now these guys are middle-aged hockey players. That's what they are. They may not be age-wise in real life, but as hockey players they are, and you don't want to be in that spot, and they weren't with Andrew Ladd, but you don't want to be in that spot where you've hung on to him too long, because then
you're talking again about.
I know, but I'm just
Blake Wheeler was an MVP candidate this past year.
I know. I'm not saying this year's the year,
and that's why, Russ, I think that instead, if they can get Wheeler to take a shorter term deal, like 4 years,
he's not going to do it. That's the problem.
Well, then he's gone. But I'm saying if they get him to take a shorter term deal, then that's why you're going to see Trouba get moved in the offseason, because they can't pay Laine and Connor and Wheeler and Trouba. They're going to have to make a decision on somebody, and to my mind, it's the guy who I think has indicated more than once that he's not willing to stay there if they're not going to pay him what he's worth.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, right now they're in a bad spot with Blake Wheeler, because there's no way he's taking a short-term deal, because this is probably his last big deal.
This is a big deal. Yeah, they're going to have to sign him. They're going to have to find another way.
They'll have to find another way.
Remember, guys, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks again, and talk to you soon.